Okay, so Ewane, do you say Ewane or just because you introduced me as to yourself as E?
Yeah, I go by E. I go by my full name, which is Ewane. But for my friends, a lot of my friends call me E, and I like it as a brand. Honestly, the my first name is like a family name, so a lot of people in my family have my first name as their last name, so that's another reason why I like E.
Have had a ton of it. You've had some weird experiences, so like, tell me about this Mt.Shasta stuff.
So Mt.Shasta is the route. I was actually reading about it this morning. I didn't know that you were gonna bring that up, but this morning I was looking up something about Mt.Shasta being like the root chakra, whatever that means. But it has something to do with like ley lines and like where people have identified like certain energies. I still think it's kind of Western based because like the idea that the root chakra would be in Mt.Shasta for everyone is kind of interesting to me. Like I don't know how you would determine that.
Yeah, I don't know how you would determine that, because I hear that like that a lot. Like they'll say like Uluru is like the sacral
Right.
chakra, or like there's like some place in Hawaii, or then like they're like, oh, like
Right.
Avebury is the heart chakra of the planet, and
Right.
Titicaca is another. I mean, they have all these like
Right.
bullet points where you're kind of going like, okay, like
Okay.
sure.
Right, right. The only one that I was cool with was, you know, and this is I guess how anything works, a confirmation bias. I saw like the pyramids in Egypt were like the throat chakra. I was just like, oh yeah, let me go find my voice over there. That's a good excuse to go to Egypt. I haven't seen the pyramids yet, but as you know, there's a lot of people. Are we allowed to talk about past life stuff here? I don't know what all you're
Yes,
gonna be.
please do. Get as weird as you want. There's no off limits with Nikki, I swear.
Okay, all right, perfect. Because Nikki was talking to me about Atlantis in Colombia. And
Yeah.
so these types of things, these type of energies are interesting, right? I think you might even mention something about Egypt whenever we had talked before.
Well, I had just gone to Egypt. Like
That's what it was. Okay.
I went in October of 2019. So yeah, like it's and Egypt was just like a complete, for me, I was just like, if you ever believed the full story of like, you know, a bunch of slaves built it like one brick at a, like the bricks are as big as cars, like the whole, you're kind of going like, it would take like 1,000 men to pull. I mean, like the thing was just insane, like how colossal it was. And I was just kind of going like, wait a minute, what is this place? This is like
Right.
crazy, like they're hiding something from us, or maybe they're not even hiding, maybe they don't know, but it's just like the stories you've been fed about Egypt are pretty insane. Like when you go there in person, and the pyramids are just one thing, there's all kinds of like sites there that you're kind of going like, why does this exist?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
even like when we went to Manoa, we went to Colombia, and that I mean, we were at some sort of crazy portal place there, and
Right.
I had never heard of that ever in the history of my life. I've never even heard of anybody else who's ever heard of that. So that makes me wonder how much is out there that we don't really know.
You know what? One thing that's wild, because we're gonna get back to the Shasta thing. I'm very on timing on what we're talking about. I just want to make sure that you understand. There is a little bit of interesting, like, because one of the things Demetrius, a mutual friend of ours, told me or reminded me in this lifetime was that spelling is spells, right? Like these are like these things are just, it's just sounds. So Manoa, right, Manoa. And then a few weeks ago, I was researching Atlantis, and it's all about like Minoan, like civilization. Like the whole thing was about like Manoa, and then this whole thing about Atlantis. Like there's something there, even though the Minoan civilization in it for Atlantis is technically supposed to be in like the like Mediterranean Sea, but I mean, who knows? Like people are just positing things. Regardless, if and let's believe that there was a civilization, because again, it's all hearsay anyway, so might as well believe it. These people were probably very, dispersed anyway. right? So it's just like, I don't know this Minoan, like the word and like how it's transferred through time, and somehow we end up in Manoa. Yeah, it seems like it's spelled differently, but it sounds exactly the same.
It sounds the same, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what that one leads to.
Yeah, we really will. I mean, like I was reading Plato like a couple of months. Well, like I was researching because I was gonna do a big episode on like everything that we know about Atlantis. And it's just what we physically know on paper, like from ancient recording, is it's mentioned in multiple times, but like one of the main like the oldest recording we have is Plato wrote about it, and he described it as like it's not like a city. It wasn't an Atlantis city. It was like a continent. It was like a people. It was like a time that fell. So I was like, that makes more sense to me.
Right. Yeah, I was just reading some Plato not too long ago too, that around the same thing. So maybe this podcast was destined.
Maybe it was destined to be. Yeah, I don't know. I and then like you hear a lot about Mu, like the like MU, which is supposed to be connected with like Hawaii, Mt.Shasta, Easter Island, like some parts of maybe New Zealand. Like it's a specific something that like would have supposedly a continent that would have sunk in the Pacific. And it was, I think it maybe they were the people that even predated Atlanteans. I'm not even really sure, but I just know like
okay. Ooh, like Lumeria.
Like Lumeria. Yeah, Lumerians.
Okay.
It was the island or like the continent of Mu. There's a whole bunch of stuff about that, and I'm kind of going, well, I mean, like the Earth's crust is not fixed. It's never, I mean, I think we kind of get a little bit we get too comfortable with like that geology has always looked the way geology has, but it really hasn't. I mean, the reason the Rockies are like, oh yeah, it's because they're newer than the Appalachian Mountains, which are like, yo.
Right.
Or supposedly, right. I don't know. That's the other thing. Like,
right. Where's Easter Island, by the way? I just saw that earlier today.
It's off of it's like you have to go into Chile. You have to get the closest access to it is Chile. So it's in South America, but it's like it's a little island by itself off of South America in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
And it's got all those giant like Easter Island heads and stuff, which look like you know, they at first when I was young, they only ever talked about the heads, and then now they have full bodies. So that's kind of cool and interesting. And then when I was in college, the way they presented Easter Island, they said that the Dutch found it for the first time. Well, they didn't find it for the first time, but the Dutch found it like in the 1500s, and it was a cannibal island. Like there was only like 500 or 600 people left because the story was that they had just like been so inbred and had no other food source. They just started eating each other. And so they were kind of like really bad off when they found them. But they said that it had at one point been an island of thousands of people, and that they used it as the example of a place that like killed its own environment. So they used all those trees to roll the big stones to the edges of the corners and stuff like that, so that they don't really know why they did any of that, because the people that they found couldn't give them any information. But they basically took down every last tree on the island, so they had no more food source. And that's the story. But like now that I'm older and I'm kind of looking at stuff, I'm kind of going like, I don't even know that that's true. Right. I mean, because then I also saw just the other day, like one of those big statues, they were moving it with ropes where like it can walk on its feet. So they didn't have to roll it on it. Because the way that it made it sound in like when I was in college, they said that like they would put like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of logs, and they would roll the big stones on that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think that's true. There's no proof of that. That's just someone's theory.
Right. So many things that are, you know, theory. Well, one thing that's not theory is whenever we experience something ourselves, right? So Shasta Shasta. I've had a couple of trips to Mount Shasta at this point. The first one, which was probably the craziest time I've one of the craziest things that I've experienced was for a trip tour. It was kind of, I guess, around. It's similar to the trip to Colombia. It was like a shaman, and I guess he didn't really go by like say he was a shaman, but he had like he'd done stuff with like the Dalai Lama or whatever. He went by magic. Oh yeah, I told you about this.
Yeah, that
okay, yeah, coming back around. Okay, so when I heard about it at first, I remember I was in LA I hadn't been there that long, and I was just like, man, this is kind of kooky, right? Like I was just like, I'd never experienced anything like that before. The most I had done was like meditation retreat that they call it Vipassana, or it's just like a silent.
Oh, the 10-day silent retreat.
Yeah, silent retreat.
How'd
right?
you like that? We got to come back to that. You got to tell me about that.
Yeah. We'll definitely come back to it. So I was like, okay, this one, you could technically have your phone and stuff as opposed to the other one. So I was like, okay, but I knew that we were going to all these like sacred sites, whatever that means, right? Like, and so I was just like, okay, here we go. And man, I mean, from the time that I got there, all the people that were there it was kind of like Colombia. They were just like blessed people. Like, it's just like, I don't even know who you people are or how you ended up here, but you're different, clearly, right? Like, kind of like me. So you're different. Okay, like, let's see where this goes. And I think probably the first or second day we go to like this sacred waterfall, and like people are like, oddly, the story that we got told we were there is that like you'll see like people like shape shifting and stuff around the mountain, and you'll just see interesting things. I remember seeing a friend of mine who I went with, and he like turns into like a panther or something by the waterfall. Like he starts like growling and he's like scratching his neck. I'm like, the heck is going on here? Like I was like, what is happening? Like this is not real. It didn't feel that way anyway. So then no drugs either. Like no.
I was gonna say they were gonna ask, like, were you on something?
No, I'm telling you guys, you can go to this place. We're telling y'all in the Southern way. I don't like to say guys anymore. It's a whole other story.
I love y'all. I think y'all's awesome.
I think y'all's awesome too. And so no, I'm telling y'all, like, it definitely, no anything else needed. It's just an interesting place. So that was like day one. By like day 2 and 3, like people are feeling called to just like jump in lakes and stuff, and then come out the lake like freaking cussing at dudes, talking about you will never dominate me again. And this one woman, like I was just like, holy man. I was like, this is getting serious. Somebody ended up well, it was kind of like there was also like this cord cutting thing. Have you heard of cord cutting?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Explain it. Explain it to people who haven't heard about it.
So cord cutting essentially means that like within this living space that we habitate, people are all connected. So if you look at us all like in a web, then everyone has some kind of connection to the next person. Now, some of those connections that could be stronger can also be of detriment to us as a person. So in the world of spirituality and self-help and all this stuff, you see this calling that people start feeling for choosing what's in their best interest, basically, like the self-love principle. So within that, sometimes people will go through processes where they call cutting cords, where they have someone assist them, or they in themselves visualize and experience cutting of those cords in the, cosmos, atmosphere, all that good stuff. So yeah, I had an episode with that.
So
I
did you do
remember
that
being
whole thing where you like physically swirl like in your sacral chakra and like pull it out until you don't feel like it needs to be pulled anymore, and then like metaphorically cut it? Or was there a different, like I've seen that exercise. I've done that one before.
well, that's really cool. That's really cool. I think I just like created
Like
like a sword and just started like cutting stuff.
like
Like I was just freaking. I was like, man, get off of me.
yeah. Yeah, and I've also had like there's been some energy healers that will sort of like have you sit and visualize and then see where on your body like there's like sort of like these like energetic threads that are connected to you. And like they say, because sometimes they say you don't want to cut all the cords. So you don't, there's some people that you like your mother or something. Like I don't know. There's some people you want to be, or maybe people don't want to be connected to their but there are some cords that you don't want to be cut or something. But I was always just like, no, I want it all off. Just take it out. Um
Right.
yeah. So I do think that is really an interesting exercise in theory. So when you go to Mount Shasta, is it like a play? Okay, see, I actually haven't been. I've been meaning to go for years and just haven't. And now with COVID stuff, it's been a little bit more difficult. But I still want to go sometime when it gets a little warmer this year. This is my Shasta year. Anyway, the thing is like I'm confused. Is it like where's is it like you go to the actual peak of Mount Shasta, or is it more just like there's all kinds of little nature stuff all around it? Or is it just like an area, a national park? Or like what, when you say Mount Shasta, does it mean the actual mountain peak that is Mount Shasta? Or what does that mean?
So Mount Shasta, when people are speaking about it, are talking about the town of Mount Shasta. So it does happen to have a mountainous area within it, but there's also like shops and a bunch of woo-woo stuff like that. There's like waterfalls and sacred waterfalls. There's like sacred caves around
I
places.
love caves.
Yeah, like sacred lakes. Like there's like this like heart lake. He's like shaped like a heart in a sense. And then there's like, what else is there? I mean, it's just like all the things that you would expect. It's similar to like a Sedona for people who have been there.
Right.
I would just say that Mount Shasta definitely has like a very like it has like a vibe to it where people are going there specifically with the intention to connect in like a very deep way.
Okay, yeah, because I have heard people talk about well, like Sarata, the shaman that we went to Colombia with, like he went to Mount Shasta and saw like some giant Lumerians. And then I've heard people talk about Bigfoot, they've seen fairies, they've seen aliens, they've seen ships, they've seen like all kinds of magical things that like they say like they've had I've listened to some people on YouTube who've talked about how there was like what like the time delay thing where they got lost and they thought that they were gone for like 10 minutes and they were gone for like 2 days or something. Like there's some
right,
slippage of some, they said that it's
right,
like a very thin veil, basically.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. That was most definitely and has definitely been my experience. Has definitely been my experience. I mean, matter of fact, there was a story that because of this slippage that we were talking about, that the person who led us magic in the on the retreat, he was telling a story about how he ended up in a cave once, and he was talking about he's going through the cave, and at some point he was basically asked to like make like this leap of faith, and it was kind of happening in this whole spiritual realm, and somehow he kind of just like ended up on the other side of the cave. And so in hearing that, I don't know, for some reason I felt very called to then, because we were by caves when he was telling the story, and then he was like, okay, you guys go about your merry way. And so I ended up going like this cave, and as I go like deeper and deeper in this cave, like it just seemed like everything was very much so like super like reverent. Like it was like every room I was in, it was just like, prayers, and blessings to all those who have been in here and who have died and all that. Like it just seemed like it was that type of energy. Yeah. Right. Like everywhere, like each year. And so like as I was going deeper and deeper, at some point I got to the point where I was just feeling this calling to just keep going deeper, because I guess I just felt like the story that he had told was going to happen for me. I was like, I'm going to get to the end of this cave somehow or some way, right? And then at some point that it was made aware to me that was not how things are going to turn out, because matter of fact, what ended up happening for me was that I had so in the cave, headlamp on, I end up getting alone. Yes, I end up getting into alone, and no one knows where I'm at because I've gotten so far deep in the cave. At least that's my thought at the time, right? So the new room that I go into, I kind of like duck into it. And I remember just kind of feeling like wherever I was at. And I was just like, okay, it was another one of those like reverent type of things. And then like I opened my eyes and like my headlamp had went out. So I'm like reaching like literally like this, and it's just like all over the place. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I was just like, oh snap. Like, I was like, I have no idea, like direction just went away. Like it was intense. And so for the next 10 hours or whatever it was, I was kind of just, for a couple, I was kind of, for a little bit, I was fighting it. Then after a while, I kind of just ended up being like, you know what, this isn't happening, right? Like, I was like, let me just make my peace with this situation.
Wow.
Because, it just is what it is. Like, there's only so much yelling you can do to realize that no one can hear you. So, like, it was interesting. And
so did you have your phone with you? Like, were you able to use that flashlight or?
My phone?
Yeah, like the flashlight on your phone, or?
No, nothing. No, it was that.
Holy cow.
Nothing, yeah. No, it was.
You were in a cave for 10 hours in complete darkness. Like,
wow. Well, see, okay, so backstory about getting what you asked for, and maybe it all being, I mean, what is consciousness anyway? But getting what you asked for, right? So like at the beginning of that year, I had wrote down, because I was in LA, West LA, especially for those of you know, it's like the woo-woo community central, man, or one of them. So like people are all like, oh, ego death and ego death and ego death and ego death. Right. So I was just like, oh man, that sounds like, that's what I want. I want ego death. And so I wrote it on like my little goals, right? Like for the year, that people were supposed to I was part of this like Power of 8 group, which for those that don't know, like people say there's like power and like groups of 8 and so on and so forth. There's a book about it. So there was a guy I met who made like a little mastermind group for that for the year. And so like each day of the week, it ended up being 7 of us, but for each day of the week, people like someone would post in the little WhatsApp group their or eventually the Slack their goals for the year. And then everyone would kind of like, wish on them or pray on them, or they're saying that they would at some point throughout the day. So my day was Thursday, and this day that this happened to also be Thursday. So I'm sitting there, like I said, and I was like, at some point it did hit me that I was just like, interesting, ego death. Okay, so I guess this is what that is. Well, guess I don't really do anything in this life anyway, man. I was just like, well, it's like, I guess if my parents never saw me again, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's like I lived a good life, like was nice to people, made my amends with all that type of stuff. And then at some point, I just kind of ended up going to sleep. And then, like at some point I hear like a voice in the distance, and I'm just like, what's going on? And to come to find out, what it ended up happening was one person, I guess 2 people, but one person specifically had seen me going at least into that cave. So they knew I was in that cave, but they also knew that no one could possibly ever get to me. But a professional professional cave diver. So there happened, this shaman 5 years before had happened to have come around that same area and met some guy who was a professional cave diver. And the only reason he spoke to him because he had New York plates and he was living in New York. And he was like, what are you doing all the way out here? He's like, oh, I'm out here for cave diving. He ends up feeling called to call him. And the dude happens to be like down the road eating like corn on the cob. And, and so he was just like, I think I know where he is. And he comes down there. And, the rest was history. I ended up coming out. And it was this whole, situation, like cops and paramedics and all this type of stuff and all over the place. And I'm just like, look, man.
Wow, E.
Look, right. Like, I was like, I need some time to process the situation, but I didn't really get time to process it. It just kind of processed itself. I think it was exactly like 3:33 when we got in the car. And then we get back to the retreat center and a lot of the people were still up and they were like holding vigils and all this kind of stuff. And by the time I knew it the next day, it was like, it got real because in Shasta, people don't necessarily like, it's not like you're say what's nice for people to hear type of thing. It's like, you're like a pure channel at that moment. So like, you're just saying stuff that I guess needs to be heard. So that day, the shaman was just like, yeah, we're not going to do what we were doing today. I think we should all just discuss what happened yesterday and like see people's feelings and so on and so forth. Come to find out, when I was knocked out in the cosmos, man, people were like, a few people were just like, how could he be so stupid? Especially women. It was so powerful because it was like their love manifested in like anger. They were just like, he's a freaking idiot. Like, they're telling me this as we're going around the circle. Like, how the fuck could he do that? Like, no, like, why? I'm sitting here, like, listening to all this. I'm like, holy. This is a lot.
Yeah.
This is a lot. So, yeah, that's Shasta in a nutshell. I was only one person, but everyone that was there on that particular trip had moments like that. Mine was just kind of like the coup de grace or whatever. Like, it was like the end, like it was at the last day anyway, or the second to last day. And so it was like the ending, like, catharsis for everyone. But people had their moments throughout the week of just like stuff that they couldn't explain how it happened. Certain cards that they were pulling, they kept pulling like the same thing because we're pulling these cards. Just things that are just completely inexplainable. We even ended up staying in a house who the friend that I'm talking about, he's a Cancer. I am like a Cancer Leo, like, so I have a lot of Cancer in my chart. We ended up staying in like a moon room that, well, I guess was some like boys' room with like in like these bunk beds. And the morning of this situation that Thursday, he brought out these animal totem cards. He has me pull one and I pull the Black Panther, which is talking about like going in darkness. And like,
wow.
Yeah, it was.
And is this the friend that you saw become a Black Panther? Like when you guys, like the first day? Is this the same friend that you like visualized him as a Black Panther?
I didn't think about that. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He's big on Panthers. But yeah, that's Shasta. And then the second trip to Shasta was a little bit shorter. But it was definitely also powerful. Ended up meeting like a guy who like had been living in the mountains. And then he ended up coming to our house that we were staying in and doing like this interesting, one of the women that we were with, he started like having some type of thing with like where they were just like talking like they had seen each other in like past lifetimes or something. Like, I don't know how that happened. I was just kind of sitting there just watching it like, okay, like this is interesting. Saw people jumping off of like, I mean, I guess the waterfall thing isn't that not normal, but what the waterfall I think represented, the one that we went to in Shasta, was that the people that were around there were very much so expecting like people to be like baptized in this water, right? Like it
Right.
was like that type of vibes. Like everyone that was around there and the vibes felt like it was like some type of biblical like moment. And there were like people around like the edges and things were happening while we were there as well, this second trip as well. So definitely Shasta, highly, well, I guess I would say recommended, but I mean, I guess it just has to do if you're called to it. I'm sure anyone that's called to watch this will probably be, be called to it.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I had this monk friend who like he claims like I don't remember what his dude was that he followed or whatever, but like he claims that he knew some other monks who claim to be, or that he has friends, I would say, that claim to be like 300, 500, 400 years old. And I was like, what? And he is like, yeah, no, they're like 500 years old. And I'm like, oh, okay, like human years, like Earth years, like what are we talking about here? And he's like, yeah, so they go into a cave of darkness, completely absolute sheer darkness for 3 weeks once every 50 years, and it regenerates their cells. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it resets their cells so that they don't age forward, they age backwards for about 25 years, and then they go back to like, so you keep between like the ages of like 50 and 25 or something. And so you don't ever go into the cave until you're 50, and then you revert back to like you're 25, and then you go back to 50, and then once you're there you go, yeah. And I was like, huh? Well, I didn't like, and apparently he says that like what you have to do is like you have to stimulate the pineal gland in such a way that it completely opens your third eye, and it does something to your whole body. And like he's never tried it, but he was like, yeah, I know at least 3 people who that's how they've been doing that for hundreds of years. And I'm like, okay. And then I think to myself, I'm like, could I go into a cave with absolute, I'm like, well, what is there, some sort of special meditation, some sort of special diet, some sort of special? And he goes, I think it's just the sheer blackness. You can't have anything. You can't have any light from anything, not even any kind of cave opening. He's like, I think you have to, it's just you. I mean, you can still go to the bathroom. You can still do whatever. I think it's just the sheer darkness that does something to your cells. And I was like, huh, okay. So maybe when I'm 50, I got a 3-week excursion coming up.
maybe we both do. So let me, okay. So much power is happening right now. I don't know where this is going to lead, Nikki Anna Jones, but I will say this. I did have a time since Colombia where I ended up, a friend of mine, Shook, and Shook, it should be his name. He ended up bringing like this special like hash rosin, like, which is some type of like concentrate of cannabis, to the house we were living at. We're like living at this house. This is with Demetrius, also with like, I don't know how many people, but man, one hit of that thing in a bong, and I was sure that I never had to go to sleep again. It lasted about 2 days, and I went to sleep. But I'm just saying that, like, during that time period, I was contemplating such things. And right around then, there's a guy named Grandmaster Mantak Chia. And he basically is like the Bruce Lee of meditation in a sense to the West. Like, he basically brought like all the stuff from the Tao, which, from people that don't know the Tao is basically about like living in flow with life, or like the middle way, or circle, the yin and yang, the flow in that way. So he created like a system and so on and so forth, and they brought it to the West. He kind of is a lot of it, what he's known for has to do with like multiple orgasms for women and men. But it really just has to do with like sacral energy.
Like when the same session, like
the what?
Like multiple orgasms within the same sex session?
Within the same session.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly, within the same session. And like how to transmute energy, which is life force energy, sexual energy, as some people call it, but life force energy into healing yourself. So, but one of the main things though is he has and they call it dark room technology. He's not the only person that does this, but there's these retreats where people go to what they call dark rooms, and they say that, yeah, by like day 3, or some people stay longer, that after a while, something happens in the pineal gland, and like you just,
well,
get enlightened. Like you're just all of a sudden
yeah,
enlightened.
I know. Okay, I know that when we were in Colombia, after I left your group, we met another guy, and he was like, I can't remember the name of the tribe, but they like have this like cocaine shell thing that they're always licking on. Like he sits there the entire time you're talking. It's like a gourd, and it's got like a stick in it, and he's always licking at it like this the whole time. You'll just be talking to him, and it's basically he's crushing up like some sort of cocoa leaves and seashells, which kind of makes it cocaine. But anyway, because apparently they can be here like talking to you right now, and then like in the astral at the same time. But so what that tribe does, I can't remember the name of the tribe, but I have the dude on my WhatsApp. I should talk to him, except I have to always translate in Spanish, like on the Spanish app, and then send. It's annoying, but I need to learn Spanish. I tried. I went to Mexico for 2 months to try to do it, and I got a couple of words, but it's very hard. Anyway, so like they take their young, like anybody who has like sort of a shamanic, like they can sense that they're going to have some sort of shamanic abilities when they're older. Like for the first 8 years of their life, they keep the children in caves. Like they raise them in these caves because they have to learn how to see with this eye before they can see with these eyes. So,
right, the shaman in Shasta said that exact story about some other type of tribe like that.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the tribe. That's if I remember it, I'll like put the thing here. But yeah, it's and I was asking him about this. I was having like Brian translate for me, and I was just going like, okay, wait. So when do you put it in? Like, how would you know that they're like, isn't that like child abuse? Like, how do you like, and he was just like, he's just like looking at me like, this chick's crazy. And he's just going like, he's like, no, they go in when they're like 3. And then, they come in out when they're like 8, and then they end up, being able to become our shamans later on.
We'll see. One thing about that though is one thing we experienced as well was the Temescal. For people that don't know what Temescal is, it's basically like a sweat lodge that people just like put together. And I remember we were in there, and I remember at some point things kind of got wild or they got liberated, I guess, at some point in Colombia. We'll leave that up to people, can leave that up to their imagination. But basically, we're in this Temescal, and I remember I was like sitting there, and I'm just like, man, this is starting to get kind of tough, man. Like, I don't know, they just keep adding more water in this shit. And then I remember I looked to the right, and this little like 3-year-old is looking back at me, man. He's just like, look, bro, like I was going into this, like this is nothing to me, bro. Like I do this. I was just like, the heck?
Right.
Like he was looking at me like, dude, like I don't even feel it anymore, man. And I was just like, these people are incredible. What kind of stuff are we experiencing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't do Judema or however you say it with you guys, but I did it like a couple days later with Brian at another place, and we were doing it with a 16-year-old girl and her family. It was like a family thing. It was like, oh yeah, well, we want her to experience the other world with us, like in a safe way. So we're bringing our teenager to do some psychedelics.
Right.
It's a completely different culture, but they're way more grounded with it than we are.
Right. And how about this dude, Hanuman, who before I knew anything about like this last year, I learned a lot. That's what I said. We're on some trippy type of mission, Mickey Anna Jones, because in this last maybe few months, time is a somewhat illusion, right? But recently I found out more about this Hanuman character in like Hinduism, which also is interesting, right? Because we were in Colombia with possibly the only Hindu Colombians that exist, right? Like,
they were Hindu Venezuelans, like refugees. Like they
right.
were, yeah.
It was just like, what is even going on here, right? And so there was a guy named Hanuman who like apparently like
pictures of Egypt all the time. He was always drawing like hieroglyphs. Did he show you the notebook? It was full of hieroglyphs. Yeah. It was crazy.
Just full of all kinds of stuff. And he had walked like however many miles and days to get there. But like it was like some kind of story. Like no one told him that people were meeting up. He just felt called. Like it was like, what are you even talking about? Like, where did you come from?
So I was in the middle of my trip in Judema, like in the middle of tripping, in the middle of the night, like at 1 a.m. or something, and like I just go to throw up, and I'm like looking up the road, and like there's like these 3 people walking, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm seeing people. That's interesting, and it's Hanuman. And he's really there. He like showed up. He like walked there. I don't know how he got there or how it happened, but he came and like met us like in the middle. And I was like, what? Like he was magical. There was lots of magical people.
Yeah, he's a magic. Exactly. There's a lot of magical people, magical things. One thing that was magical as well, being that this was a trip to Atlantis, was that it was this in its own way. It hit me one day that it was like its own like technological like advancement, because like they're just like living off of the land, right? Like it's like organic everything. There's freaking plants all over the place. They got everything from cannabis to psychedelics, which is probably another psychedelic, but all this type of stuff just all over the land. Like I remember walking up the mountain and one of the guys who played the music, he was like, oh yes, this right here, yopo tree. I was like, what is a yopo tree? And to him, it just like, he was like, it brings visions. That was all this, that was as simple as they knew, this stuff that just grows around this place freely. Like it's just, it just brings visions. It's not like you get here and people are like, oh, is it schedule 5 or is it scheduled, whatever.
No, yeah, I mean,
we need to do some more research before we,
Yeah, I was kind of like further almost to the Amazon with like when we left you guys, and it was like we were at this little these people's house, and they were completely off the grid, and it was just like the 15-year-old or 16-year-old girl's like, oh, that plant helps Alzheimer's memory. Yeah. So you give that to old people so they don't have Alzheimer's. And you're like, what do you mean? She's like, you just boil it and it turns to a tea and it brings back memory. Okay, on we're walking, la la la. And you're like, wait, I need to take some of this plant. Like, like, what do you mean? Like I need to take this for my mom or something. I need, what are we doing here? And it's just like, what is the name of this plant? I don't know. It's the memory plant. Like it's just like, I mean, and I don't even doubt that it's wrong.
I mean, how could it be? I mean, that's the thing about plants and what our perception is of us not being plants, right? Like the idea of it is that like the only reason that you resonate with the plant is because we're plants in our own way, right? Like, so it's just like, it's all resonance. Like, so for people in a certain way, there's a movie called The Hook. It was like an old Robin Williams movie about Peter Pan.
Oh yeah.
And in the movie, like in Never Neverland, like you could imagine stuff and it was there, right? They're just like, just believe, Peter, and you'll see it. Yeah. Right. It's kind of like that. Like it was kind of like that. Like most of everything that I experienced while I was out there, and it sounds like you experienced even more so, was like, you just like see like a horse, unicorn in the middle of the night.
Yep.
And the rest of the time, I'm just like, I haven't, like, there's no way that was like a physical, like, there's no way it could have happened that way.
Yeah.
But everyone saw and experienced it together. So those are the type of things. And maybe, that last meeting, I still think, in regards to our relationship, which I'm very, very grateful has continued, is what Sarata said. In their culture, one of the coolest things was that everyone is equal. So like everyone is a leader. So like, in the Western world, it's like, oh, Sarata is like this shaman or whatever. Like to them, it's just he's just another person. He's just another person.
Right.
He's respected because of things that he's done and nothing else. So so because of probably a lot of these plants and things of this nature, he was still very sharp. And so so we have this last little seance, little circle thing. I don't know if seance is the word. We had this last little circle, and I remember he was like spiritual tourism. And I remember thinking, like, as soon as he said, I was like, first and foremost, since when do you understand words like that? You haven't spoke 2-3 words since we've been here, and
right.
all of a sudden, spiritual tourism comes out your ass. Like, what was that? What was that about? And I just remember just being like, that is kind of interesting, right? Like the idea of it, and I'm seeing more and more of it pop up this year, especially with all the shifts that are happening. But like, it's a real thing. Like people going either, from their homes, I guess in a sense now with virtual everything, but physically, in a sense as well, to these different places that are known to have and bring. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your video went off, but it could, yeah.
Okay. They're known to bring people these
mystical
experiences. Yeah. These mystical things, and it just goes from there. So
well, I mean, like it's so weird because like I'm just gonna start like with the Nikki Anna Jones thing. I actually, my big goal is like I want to lead some tours. Like I'm really good at calling in UFOs. Like that's my kind of like my specialty. Like I'm like alien girl, right? Like I always see like UFOs and stuff like that. So I'm gonna I want to do a New Mexico one and take people to like Roswell and like Chaco Canyon and some of like these sand dunes and caves and things like that. And then also like at night try to call in UFOs and stuff. Like I want to do a tour like that. So I'm going to try to build one out for the fall. But yeah, I guess it is kind of like the spiritual tourism stuff. There's a market there, man, because I'm always looking for stuff like that to go to myself.
Right. I definitely feel as though with this shift, it might turn into like, well, I mean, in the technical world, but obviously we kind of speak on a different level, but like on a technical world, I guess people call it VR. But like that world of this shifting into this new paradigm, what I'm figuring is going to happen, at least with where I'm feeling called to go, is that the compassionate thing to do would be to relay the exact replica of what's happening on the earth now into this world, and then allow people to build from there. It's just from that perspective, it offers way more creativity, but someone could experience being in Manoa from, where I'm sitting right now and feel it all and so on and so forth as that technology advances and things of that nature. So I think that's obviously,
I've seen there's that virtual reality thing where it's like there's like a virtual reality painter where like you can literally like paint things like you can make 3D paint. Have you seen those?
I have not, but it sounds like that's where everything, like humans do not go, our understanding of what we're doing going through time never goes backwards, regardless of however we perceive how this thing should work. Maybe it's a circle, people have different views on what the dimensionality is, but it doesn't go backwards. So with that being said, people in this whole, I can't wait to go back traveling. I'm like, I don't know that it's going to change that much, right? Like, because we don't really tend to do stuff like that. It's a mass amount of matter and energy, right? So like people are right now very, very much so learning how to be at home. Like by hook or crook, like they're sitting at home and it's like, well, I mean, I guess I can order it online. I guess I can. I mean, I like going to the store, but I mean, if it's gonna be here tomorrow, I mean, I guess I can do it, right?
But I don't want to be all like that's like Ready Player One. That's like, have you ever read that book? Or like it's like basically everybody lives in the VR world, and like you just basically have to keep your body alive. Other than that, you live here. I don't know. It's interesting though, because it's like I feel like when you're incarnated in this body, you gotta go check it out, man. You gotta go see the world. There's just no substitute. That's like, it's like masturbating versus having sex, you know? There's just no substitute for the real thing.
Well, okay. See, I would say that that's the case if and only if you only consider that the VR thing will be like Ready Player One. But if it wasn't like Ready Player One and it was more like stepping through, like you've seen Rick and Morty.
No, but that's you're the second person today who's told me I need to watch Rick and Morty. I need to watch Rick and Morty. I'm like, okay, I'll watch Rick and Morty.
Well, I guess it's channel. I don't know. I don't even know where that came from. But in Rick and Morty, it's just like one of these shows with like, I mean, Power Rangers, people do it in a lot of different stuff, but where you can kind of like step through. Okay, so if you imagine like if Power Rangers, any of these things, someone stepping through a portal and just now being in like a whole new world. That's more how I envision where things are going. Like, again, especially if people are now realizing that they can be, immortal, right? Like stuff like these caves. I mean, you just told me I have a pretty influential mouth. Like, I probably will be telling that story for 90 years, right? Like, there's these caves, you can find them, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I was even thinking, like, at one point I was thinking, like, wow, how could I make something that's like pitch dark? Because like the problem with the cave for me is like hygiene. Really, I think it boils down to like hygiene. Like, I just would like a toilet, kind of like that kind of thing, and maybe like maybe the ability to bathe once or twice during those 3 weeks would be nice, and and then I was thinking, well, does it have to be torturous too? Like, can I not eat? Like, can I not or what am I talking about here for 3 weeks?
Okay, so the darkroom technology that Mantek Chia built, he built like this whole, well, I think they're building it was like conceptual when we went there. He had one, but then they were building like a new one where you're in this dark room, but like they can feed you through like this like
a double
system. Yeah, like where it comes in and so it doesn't change the darkness. So that's what I'm saying. So people are like, it's happening, Nikki. Like, especially like you already know me. I'm the type of person that now that I know that, there's no way it's not happening. Like, I have to at some point do these things so I can tell the story. Yes. Like, because that's just too amazing. What do you mean you go stay in a cave and you come out? I was telling somebody about this, and hopefully, this doesn't get too, but it's the Indiana Jones show, so I'm not really worried. I mean, or Indiana Jones show, so I'm not too worried. But you've heard about all this stuff about using like children's like energy and stuff for like the Illuminati and things.
Oh, like the adrenochrome or something.
Adrenochrome, exactly. Right. So like yesterday, I'm not putting any names out there, but I'm gonna put a name out there. I saw Tom Brady, right? I'm not saying that that's like anything he's involved in. But like, when I tell you, I thought he was like 28. Like, I was like, what happened to your face? Like, you look younger than I remember you looking 5 years ago. Like, I don't know what kind of stuff you're involved in. So that type of thing I see as being more normal place, especially.
Okay, so Tom Brady looks like he's 20. How old is Tom Brady? Supposedly like 40?
43, I think. Yeah. 43. So, I mean, it's not impossible. Plus, I mean, if you have access to some of the things that are known as the cusp of health, which is something that I guess I'm being led as a mission and vision of, is like all these, basically Amazon quickness of service and vast, selection and things of that nature for the world of alternative health and medicine, in a very like holistic way, all this AI and stuff like that, to just be like, hey, this is what you need right now, Nikki Anna.
Okay, but here's like,
it also tastes
this is the thing. So like first of all, I don't want, like, they have apparently to get adrenochrome, like the thing is like they have to like kill a kid and have it's like Monsters Inc. kind of thing. They take some like stuff out of their brain. I don't know what's going on with that. So like that's why like they say there's all this human trafficking and stuff. Like, that's when you get way down in conspiracy theory land. But either way, there's some shady shit with all that. But I will say, like, I had this crazy ass dream on the 14th of December. And then I didn't quite understand it. So then the dream people, like, they were these light balls came to me and talked to me again on the 15th. So they were basically saying that we're at a timeline shift and there's a timeline war happening right now. And so like how they explained it to me in my dream was that it starts with this vaccine, right? So like they're saying that it's like there's like nanotech, like there, eventually people start going down this line where like they become so artificial that in the future they you know, they become infertile, and then they start doing CRISPR shit, and they start messing with their cells, and they're always trying to perfect their being and like live longer, and they end up being the gray aliens, and they end up being like the reptilians, they end up being like those aliens, like they're like these kinds of aliens. And then like that's about like 80% of the population goes down that road, and then the other 20% ends up going down like kind of like a more shamanic type, like indigenous kind of way, and they end up being more like where they kind of like transcend their body and become like light beings. And I'm not talking like this comes in next generation or the next generation, I'm talking like thousands and thousands of years on the other side. And the problem is that like we don't even realize, like they were telling me, like we don't even realize like right now how amazingly as human beings we are connected to the source of the creator. So like meaning that I can close my eyes and I can visualize what Sarata looked like. I can close my eyes and I can visualize that unicorn. I can close my like we have this like inner technology that we take for granted, which is, it's not just memory, but we also have the ability to imagine. We have the ability to like dream. Like we have all these things that eventually they lose the connection to because they end up becoming like almost more cyborg, almost more artificial than biological in some sense. And there's not good or bad, there's no really such thing as that, it's just that it is what it is. And so like they're coming back in the timeline right now, and that's why we're having like a big, like a lot of people are seeing things and getting messed with, getting abducted, getting all that stuff, because like they're trying to figure out how to, they still have advanced brains, they can speak to each other telepathy, but they almost became more of like a hive mind, like bees or something, versus like individual humans. And so like they were having this sort of like trying to figure out like how they can still be themselves but have some sort of this like creator, because we are creators. I think that's the thing that they don't have that they want. Like we still have the ability to visualize something and then get it done, which eventually they breed out of themselves. So it was a very weird dream. But anyway, it did make me kind of feel like, I don't know, like I was really going into the technocratic, like transhumanist like movement at one point. Like I was really all into Elon Musk and all this stuff. I even have a Cybertruck I ordered. But then I started looking at it and I was like, no, man, like that's like, well, I guess I think what changed my mind about all that is like after doing enough psychedelics and having ego deaths, then I realized that like this isn't it. Like there is something else after this. Like there's like your consciousness belongs to like this big energy source. It's not only in this manifestation. So like I don't know, I'm not going to fight to be alive forever, even though I would like to live to 500 years. That would be really nice, but I don't want to like fight to be like forever in this, because I don't think this is everything. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Whoo, man. Yeah. Wow. That was
a long rant, but yeah, sorry.
That was really powerful. I'm over here kind of shaking a little bit because it's pretty much my whole life you're talking about. So I'm gonna think about like what that means. No, because I see there being, you know, I see, first and foremost, I feel like you have very powerful like dreams and purpose in, you know, this body that you're, you know, kind of inhabiting. Yeah, you didn't you say you destroyed the world or something at some point? So anyway,
yeah, I've been told that. I've been told that like I was like one of the people who created the nuclear weapons that destroyed Atlantis. Like that's like what I've been told by a couple of people. But I was like, I don't think I did that. Like that's not true. But then like maybe it's true. I don't know. But I think like the other thing is that I actually have a past life memory of being this particular like alien being, or maybe it's not past life, maybe it's future life, maybe it's like, I don't know. But I'll just say something has shared my essence that's in this capsule with this like alien type thing that was first, I think I may have been a librarian for the Akashic Records. Like that's what I think like my job was in that manifestation. But I do know, and I do remember that we didn't have children organically. We grew them in tubes. And they weren't of two people. They were of multiple people. They are multiple, like you got like a portion of your DNA put into this thing. Like you could volunteer to put some of your DNA to make like a new being or whatever. And it wasn't like a mother father kind of relationship. You were kind of village raised a child, like sort of thing. So I have actually a memory and like a feeling of how that society worked.
Well,
and so I almost feel like I've been down that route, and I don't want to go down that route. I want I want to go down the eventually being able to be more in our astral body than in physicality. Because even that's beautiful too, because it's like you think like, oh well, is that just like you're like a ghost and you're dead forever? You're like, no. Like when you're dead forever, when you're actually like, I had like the craziest ego death ever on my first time with like 9 grams of mushrooms, but anyway, so I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and I just was like, and so like I went back to where like I had no identity as a human, no identity as a girl, no identity as anything like this, and like I was electricity. Like I was this, I was in this form, and it was like the best thing in the world and the worst thing in the world. But it basically, this is a gift. Like being alive right now, being able to focus on you, being able to focus on what you say, being able to just take a deep breath in and out and just feel your fingers. Like this is such a gift that we're even like, this is a break from the chaotic, like fractaling energy thing of everything at all times, everything at once. Like that gets exhausting. Like this is so like wonderful. So I don't know. I think we have to learn to realize that we really are all like an aspect of that energy trying to experience itself and trying to learn itself. And yeah, like you'll have other experiences besides this, and you've had other experiences besides this. You'll remember them sometime if you want to. Everybody will. But once you get to that like place, I feel like you don't want to be further down the mechanical realm. You want to be in the or maybe you don't want to be. Everybody has different stages of where they want to do and what they want to experience, right? No two snowflakes are alike. But I feel like for me, like I want to be able to transcend into living in the astral, which I have pretty good control of the astral when I sleep. But like when you live in there, you can just fly, you can do this, you could do, I mean, it's instant manifestation, for real instant manifestation, not technology. It's like a different kind of, it's a different plane than we live on. But we can get there, and we still have connection to it, which is like why we sleep. It's like why we even have dreamland, which is a third of our life that everybody goes like, yes, you're processing. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Okay. I'm done.
Oh no, I hear you. No, I mean this is the Nikki Anna show. Like I mean, like if you don't have rants, like this is part of it. This is part of it. I love your rants. I think that I'm. It's so perfect that we're doing this, because it's like two energies in the cosmos that are very much so like, I think seeking something very similar. And I think maybe in a certain way, I feel like we're describing something that whatever happens is inevitable regardless. So It's like, what does it really even matter? Like I've been back and forth about choice for a few years now. Like the people that I'll hear that you do have choice from, I don't know that I trust. And the people that I feel act like we don't have choice seem as though they're like at a different pinnacle of consciousness. So there's something there. Like there's something like, 'cause like our perception of choice, like you said, is very interesting if you actually consider that everything that we're doing is completely magical. Like that, like how do I hear and understand you? Like, how can I vision Sarata right now as well? As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I guess we can just like pop an image into our,
Yeah.
like what are we popping an image into? Right? Like, it's just like a vat of like some inner outer eye system, ears, feel sensations thing.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a machine. Like, this is a mechanism in which consciousness experiences itself. Like, this is a kind of machinery.
Right. Right. All of it. Yeah. So in a sense, I'm just looking forward to continuing to build in the direction of people being able to tap into that astral realm. I do feel that there was something I was reading not too long ago in this book called the Gene Keys, which is similar to human design. For people that know about that, it's like the next iteration of it in a sense. And that was one of the things that they were speaking about, was that this new paradigm shift would be one more into the astral realm, as well as in the world that I live in of business. Like, there's some futurists, which are now, it's all present, that talk about it being the century of biology. So that's what it says. So it's a very, very interesting time period for those things, as people begin to understand how to master, quote unquote, this system. I don't see there being, and that's what I'm getting at, is that I don't see there being too much on an individual level that anyone is ever doing to affect the overall system. I see it as being more kind of what you said, like this magical kind of experience that people just come here and experience. They might have been chosen or chose beforehand to kind of come, because people's general pushback on that, from what I've seen from religious or theological studies, is that people are like, oh well, like, what about babies, and like, people who like die at like 3 or 7, did they deserve that? People start getting all this type of stuff. And I think that misinterprets like the stage of life and energy and love and the things that permeate, based off of, again, this is words or semantics, but I'm just saying that, like, the idea that because you have a different way of looking at the world as someone else, that they're automatically considered a villain, I guess, in a sense, based off of their current time period that they're living in. That same person, based off of history books, which is also another interesting thing, could just as easily have been a hero in another time with different morality. So based off of what we're taught. So that's why I'm saying that, in a certain sense, the experiences that can't be explained, in a certain sense, actually explain how out of our control a lot of this is. Like, meeting you in Atlantis, the whole trip, to be all the way honest, started, and without us even being in this land, which is why I'm saying that in a certain sense it's all connected, is that I was speaking with some friends of mine who were living at the house, we're all living at a house together, about Atlantis. And then maybe at the day after is whenever Dragon Love, who was one of the people that invited a lot of the Americans on this trip, sent me a message that just said something about, do you want to go on a trip to Atlantis? And I was just like, first and foremost, like, what does that even mean? Because when we were talking about it yesterday, we were basically talking about it in concept, right? Like, this guy was like, oh yeah, I watched this YouTube video, and he's like one of these guys that likes to like research stuff. He's like, watch this YouTube video, man. He's like, you guys should see this thing in Atlantis, and so on and so forth. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. And then the next day I get a message about a trip to Atlantis in the middle of nowhere, Colombia. I was just like, okay, there's something, like, I don't know how to explain how that just happened. So let's go. And then actually getting there physically turned into a series of unexplainable events, right? Like, things that just happened, and one thing led to another. And then ever since then, so we're in January now, this was March or so of last year. Since then, there have been so many examples of things that I learned or whatever from the things that happened to us in this Atlantis trip that have happened, right? Like, so it's like, how, you know, that all started from a random, seemingly random text message, which used technology. That's what I'm saying. I think that there's a realm that exists, and I feel like it's in that astral realm that actually, like, technology, and like, I don't know that there's actually a separation. I think what the technology that we're describing whenever we're talking about the bad parts of anything is just the bad parts of anything. Like, it's the underlying energy, electricity, and tension of destroying maybe a system, so that, you know, hundreds of thousands of years from now that system is gone from the DNA pool or the pool or whatever. So it's still a necessary thing. I think that, like, the actual manifestation, no matter what it is, of technology, as we call it, is still just kind of part of us. It's hints of how, like, sometimes you'll think of someone, like, I've thought of you many times, and you, like, message me in this last year, or like, or someone else will. And it's like, you're just like, wait, how did they text me just now? Like, I was just thinking about, like it was like,
that's
like,
where, I mean, and that's where I feel like our consciousness is starting to shift in a way that, like, it, I mean, like I mean, the amount of, like, I've had a 30-minute deja vu last year. I was like going like this, it was uncomfortable to be in, because, like, I knew exactly what was going to happen for 30 minutes. And it was just like, when is this going to end? You know, deja vus are usually like a moment, not like.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means. Like, that's why I was like, what is wrong with, like, this is like, are we in some sort of feedback loop? Like really, when you start getting into all this, it's like the time thing is weird. And, like, yeah, to go back to all that, like, you know, I recently learned that, you know how they always say, like, oh, for 7 generations, you know, like, you want to protect for the 7 generations or whatever. And I always just took that for, like, whatever. But then, like, I watched some YouTube video about, like, these professors at Harvard were doing this, like, they were studying your DNA and, like, how it goes back. And they were saying that, like, okay, up to 7 generations, like you have 100%, like 7 grandpas ago or 7 grandmas ago, you 100% have at least a percentage of something of their DNA in you. But once it gets to, like, 10 generations, you have, like, maybe a 50% chance of having some of their DNA in you. Once it gets to like maybe 100 generations back, you have, like, a 1% chance of having their DNA in you. Like I always just thought, like, oh, I am a conglomeration of everything that's come before me. But no, not necessarily. It's like your vessel can only hold this much. And so as time goes on, it's only gonna have so much. And so I think that's, like, in a way, you could see how there's things like Denisovans or, like, Neanderthal, or, like, these things that, like, it's not even like they died out, like we killed them with machetes. I mean, it could literally just be like the genes didn't copy themselves up to this point. Like, we evolve, like, we are an evolving machine into something different at all times. And, like, I didn't really understand that that's how all this stuff worked, but it does make me kind of realize that, like, you know, like, I was born with that only one wisdom tooth. Like, my brother doesn't have any wisdom teeth. Like, they're, like, we're we're changing, like, we're evolving into something else. We won't always be what we classified 6,000 years ago as Homo sapiens sapiens. And, like, and not only that, but I also do, on the more, like, spiritual realm or whatever, I do sort of feel like we've all been everything all before. Like, I do feel like we are electricity manifested. We're electric guests here. And I feel like sometimes you just wanted to come to, like, hunt alligators. Like, you just wanted to sit on your porch and do jack shit and, like, have a 9-to-5. Right. You came for a holiday. You're like, I don't want to do any of that. And, like, maybe last time you were Hitler, or last time you were Jesus, or whatever your thing was. But like, so this time you're like, fuck it, man, I want to be a hillbilly. And then like maybe like the thing is, we're all living out all this all the time, and so it's like actually really cool that we're all so different and that we all have weird varying opinions, because it's just a stage, man. It's just some sort of play. But anyway,
I feel that deeply. Yeah, it's Alan Watts has that quote. He says that once about, if even imagine, each of our depth of infinite intelligence and this thing. It's just like, okay, if this infinite power of manifesting, and this, like you said, the eyes basically see through us. So it's like, okay, well, I would definitely create like a play, right? Like something that was, like dramatic, and I mean, it's interesting, because it's almost as though if there was other realms, or other universes that have their own like God structure, right?
Yeah.
There could be very much so have a different personality. But it's very obvious to me that during this current iteration, that human beings are drawn towards entertainment and drama, right? Like there's not a human being that does not like to smile and laugh and whatever. Like you might not always be doing it, but the point is everyone has done it at some point. So meaning that the God sense in all of us is drawn to humor and playfulness, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so it's like, okay, so that kind of would make sense, that most of this is just kind of, you have your antagonists that come into the story, it's like, oh, it's Hitler, or it's Trump, or it's just everybody's right. Like, oh, like, we don't like you, or we love you, or whatever. And it's just this whole energy just all over the place. And so I, in a certain sense, the processing I've been feeling recently that we feel as though we're doing, I'm like, I mean, I don't know that I'm doing it. I just feel called to do things at any particular moment. Like the other day we were talking, you're like, oh, podcast. It's like, oh, I happen to be in a time of my life right now where I was actually looking to be on things like podcasts and speaking more and doing whatever else. Like it just seemed like that's what's supposed to be happening, on top of the fact that today was a type of day where I didn't have things that would have been around this time. So like, it's just like, so there's just so many,
bada bing.
Yeah, there's just so many things, even though in the physical form, like you've brought, well, let me say this, in the spiritual form, you've brought smiles and love to my heart and all kinds of stuff over the last 12 months. But in physical, like I've only actually seen you like twice. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, how is that? Like, how do you explain the randomness of intuition and consciousness, and just feeling and hearing somebody's name, or feeling something about them, or seeing something that reminds you of them. And then you now have this device that's just like, which is kind of like psychic powers, to just be like, hey, Nikki, hey, what's up? What have you been up to?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, okay. So but before we like close all this out, like what is Society.io?
Okay. So Society.io is, it's in a simple sense, it's a new way of living, right? In a simple sense, it's a new way of living. It's redesigning, having people be on the, with this phone in their hand, basically like a wand, redesigning the way that they live their life, and being able to do so in an easy and simple way, using creativity. Because what's looking like is happening, and most people can't deny that robot/AI, these are just terms that we have, but it just looks like the human life is getting easier to live, right? That's really the positive way to look at it, because 100 years ago, or like you talked about with what people imagined during like slave times of pyramids, even though obviously it's debatable if those actual pyramids could have happened that way. But times like that, yeah, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people just doing labor for like one person telling them to do something, and everyone. So I don't think anyone wants to go back to that, but obviously change is scary, right? Like it's kind of part of human existence. Like when something has to change, I have to go to a new school, like I have to make new friends, and like I said about people being at home right now. In a lot of sense, like there's great advantages, and especially in bigger cities, because these same people that are complaining about being at home are the same people complaining about traffic. So it's like people are going to be complaining about one thing or another, right? Like it's like you don't even have to go in traffic anymore. Yeah, but and just so happens right at this time in history when you're getting stuck at home, there exists companies, which again is just a name. Like the point is you can click a button on your phone and something shows up at your house, and we're still complaining, right? Like it's just like it's interesting. So I look at Society Dio as being the way to playfully create that transition into this new way of living. What we're starting with is health in a holistic form. It has to do with basically being able to use your phone to know that you're reading, you're vibrating, or you're showing that you have this particular kind of energy right now, and then presenting immediately recommendations on how to better that energy. You don't have to choose to do so, but these will they'll present options, products and services that people can choose to help that, and really that simple. And then we just have a lot of fun spiritual touristic parties, events, and things of this nature we want people to be able to do from their home, because that was kind of my background. Was a lot of it was entertainment and like parties and concerts and huge community service events. So I see the power that has to be able to get people in a higher energetic state, kind of like when we were in Colombia and like the dancing. That's why, in a certain sense, I think I completely lost myself. I don't know what the heck happened at some point. Like, I think by the time we had gotten to the end, I was probably experiencing similar to what you were experiencing you said you were going close to the Amazon, you said? Yeah. So it's almost as though similar things were happening at the same time, because as you were talking about that, I was experiencing something very similar with Hanuman, I guess, before he went on a walk to wherever you ended up at, where he would just kind of be coming up to me and he would be saying something. He'd be like, hey, man, hey, you want, he just had like stuff on him. Like it was like little, like the little ambil and like some of these little, like he was just like walking around packing. I was like, who is this guy? Who is this kid? Like, so it just seems like those type of things can be recreated in a very thoughtful way, but I don't see it as being something where people have to do too much.
Is it like if people sign up to be, is it kind of like a platform, like almost like its own?
Right. Like people would basically be the tellers of their own story, but other people within their communities and tribes and groups that they make within the platform would help them create those stories. It's just like, the idea of, stepping into a whole new world, kind of like Aladdin, right? Like,
so if I went to Society IO, could I like sign up now, or is it ready for that stage, or are you developing that out?
So right now, what we did was we were originally, like I said, we're originally doing more stuff. I was doing stuff in traditional medicine and noticing like the issues there with like big pharma and like, Medicare, Medicaid. It's just real complicated because of government, right? Like, or governance is what we call it in the tech world. So like now that there's these quote unquote new technologies, but there's a new understanding of how we can operate as humans, which is one where we have peer-to-peer trust, or like word is bond, or people say it in different ways in old cultures. But basically this technology called the blockchain allows people to be able to be in a trusted environment. So we're kind of taking the mentality of traditional health and traditional entertainment into like the virtual realm. So like digitized health and digitized entertainment, and kind of mixing those together in a way to where it's like super amazing and entertaining to feel and be a part of and immersive, but also, very much so holistically healthy, just almost just as a baseline, even like not even something to wear. So at this current stage, we're developing a phone app that can be able to tap into Apple Health, Google Health, so that those basic biomarkers can be there. And then we're developing events right now. Like we have a few events over the next few weeks where to get like people, get people going. So that it's similar right now to early stages of like Amazon. We have like the e-commerce stuff. So like stuff that has to do with like the holistic health products, and we're empowering people kind of with a eBay kind of mentality to sell it at whatever price that they want to. Their health and
so it's got its
products.
own marketplace. That's cool.
Yeah, it's got a marketplace. And then on the services side of things, where we allow the people to be able to choose if they want, you know, a certain type of therapist or anything that's in the health realm of services.
I'm a Gemini.
Of course you are. Of course. Well, see, even that though. So one of the things, and I'll probably my last Nikki Anna Jones rant is that astrology and some of these types of things, right? Like I had a friend who called me the other day, and he was deeply apologetic about after thinking deeper and looking into the science, he was just like, I didn't even know that he was holding this type of energy, but he was just like, you know, I apologize for, you know, not seeing, you know, astrology as like a real thing and so on and so forth. I was just like, I didn't even know I was that much of an advocate for it. I think I just said some things and it happened to trigger him. And so it's like, but when I went deeper with a lot of that stuff, though, I think right around Scorpio season, is just like all super intense energy on just like, you know, astrology, this and all this stuff. And I was looking at it and I was like, you know, when, you know, this identity that like people create around the sun sign is also kind of interesting. It's also very much so like Western, because it's like the actuality of it is that all
the moon
these
rising
things matter.
and all that.
Yeah, like all these things matter because we are not just like one thing, right? But it's just, I just think that it's really cool how we're deciphering so many things, and how I even understand what you're saying, Nikki. I don't think you understand. Maybe like 2 years ago, like you were talking about, you've been down since high school, college. Like I'm thinking it was maybe like 2-3 years ago was whenever like the world just like struck me, and I was just like, holy, like who are these people that I'm meeting? I'm meeting these Nickies and stuff in the middle of the jungle. I would never even have a conversation around someone in my family about anything that happened there. Like if they asked, of course, but like they don't ask because it's like energetically they just know, like I don't want to know. Like I don't even go down those roads. Like I'm cool with my football and my beer and my this and that, right?
Like I told somebody our unicorn story, like this one friend, and she goes, "Hun, you know, like there's sometimes horses have like sometimes animals can get like deformities." Like, you know, like sometimes like that maybe there was just like a deformity. And I was like, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess we're done here. Like I don't have to talk about that anymore with her. But you know, it's just like there's totally a muggle world, man. It's
right. It exists. So thank you for thank you for all
oh my god, look at what this pin. I didn't even know this. Look, this pin says, hold on, I don't think you could see it. It says Atlantis. Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a Bic pin, but it's an Atlantis Bic pin. I didn't even know that till right now when I looked at that. I was like, oh, some weird stuff, man. All right, we'll talk soon, man.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.